All right, we are now live. All right, we're streaming live on YouTube. Parties have announced ready. This is the state of Georgia versus Daryl Johnson. Mr. Johnson is charged with violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act, and that's warrant number 2021 CW50896. He's charged also in warrant number 2021 CW50897. Warrant number 2021 WA04499 for also violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act. Warrant number 2021 WA04500 is also violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act. Warrant number 2021 WA04501 is trafficking cocaine. Warrant number 2021 WA04502 is trafficking heroin, morphine, or opium. Warrant number 2021 WA04503 is all another count of violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act, and an additional 2 more counts of violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act. And warrant number 2021 WA04504, warrant number 2021 WA04505. I'm Judge Bando, sitting by special designation for the preliminary hearing for Superior Court. Present, we have Ms. Watkins representing Clayton County. The defendant is incarcerated in Clayton County Jail, and he's being represented by Mr. Florio. Ms. Watkins, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just one thing for the court's edification. I think there's one more warrant. It's for a weapon, possession of a firearm during a crime.
I do see it. 2021 WA04506. You're right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, you're welcome.
And Judge, before we begin, I understand the state has multiple witnesses in this matter. I would invoke the rule of sequestration.
He's here and he's in the waiting room. I'm not going to let him in until Mr. Wilkerson's finished.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wilkerson, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give today before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your true, correct, and legal name for the record.
Gerald Wilkerson.
And with whom are you currently employed?
City of South Fulton Police.
And how long have you been so employed?
This is my 2nd week.
And are you currently post-certified?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to your employment with the City of South Fulton Police Department, do you have any additional law enforcement experience?
Yes.
And what experience is that?
I worked for approximately 9 years for the city, for Clayton County Police Department, and before that, worked for the City of Riverdale Police Department.
Okay, let's take those both in turn. With the Clayton County Police Department, you said that was 9 years?
Yes.
Okay, and what were your job duties during that time?
I was part of the drug task force.
Okay. And were you post-certified during that time?
Yes.
All right, and prior to the Clayton County Police Department, what agency were you with?
City of Riverdale.
And how long were you with the Riverdale Police Department?
About 5 years.
Okay. And so, help me if my math is wrong, but it appears that it's about 15 years of 14 years of law enforcement experience?
Yes.
Okay. Were you post-certified in all of your capacities, most importantly, with the Clayton County Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you say you were on the drug task force, can you explain to me what that entailed?
Investigating drug-related criminal offenses.
Okay. And did you do that for your entire time with the Clayton County Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. I want to direct your attention specifically to February of 2021. Were you working with the Clayton County Police Department at that time?
Yes.
And I want to direct your attention even more directly to February 4th of 2021. Were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on the drug task force at that time?
Yes.
And did you initiate an investigation on the 4th?
Yes.
And directing your attention to a later date, February 19th of 2021, were you still working on that same investigation with the Clayton County Police Department narcotics?
February 19th. I was still employed with Clayton County Police Department, yes.
Okay. And were you employed in their drug task or their narcotics unit?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have the occasion to respond to 4552 Old Dixie Highway, room 105 in Forest Park, Georgia?
On which day?
Pardon?
On which day?
On February 19th.
Is that the day he was taken into custody?
Yes, sir.
I was out there.
You were breaking up a bit.
I was on vacation that day.
Okay. Did you have the occasion to do an investigation as it relates to Mr. Daryl Johnson?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Can you explain to me the nature of that investigation?
I started a drug investigation after receiving information from a confidential informant stating that Mr. Johnson was selling illegal narcotics. The informant advised he was staying in room 105 at the, I believe it's the home lodge located on Forest Parkway or 4552 address, Old Dixie. Started the investigation by conducting a control buy from Mr. Johnson's room. On the second buy, we conducted a buy in which detectives observed the offender pull up to the location in a blue vehicle. I think it was a blue Kia. The CI made contact with Mr. Johnson, was able to purchase a quantity of cocaine and marijuana.
Okay. Thank you for that, Officer Wilkerson. I want to break it down just in slightly smaller bite-sized pieces.
Okay.
You said that you received information from a CI or a confidential informant that led you to your focus on Defendant Johnson.
Right.
And you gave an address in your testimony, 4552 Old Dixie Highway. What's significant about that address?
That's the location of the hotel in which Mr. Johnson was staying, I believe in room 105.
Okay. And you mentioned a couple of buys. Can you walk me through how many, if any, buys were there from Mr. Johnson?
I believe at least two. I know one was directly from the hotel room, and at least one other was at a gas station in close proximity to the hotel.
Okay. And when let's talk about the one at the hotel, specifically at the hotel room. Is that the same room 105 that you know to be Mr. Johnson's room?
Yes.
And when that buy was conducted, did the confidential informant purchase specifically from Mr. Johnson and not just from somebody in his room?
Objection, leading.
The CRI did state.
Hold on, Mr. Wilkerson. Hold on 1 second. I need to respond to Attorney Florio's objection, Your Honor. May I respond? Thank you, Your Honor. The question was, did this happen? Just because a question has a possible yes or no answer does not by its nature make it leading. The state's question wasn't leading.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
The question was, did the confidential informant buy from Mr. Johnson, or did he just buy from somebody who was at Mr. Johnson's room?
It's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wilkerson, I'll re-ask, did the confidential informant buy from Mr. Johnson, or did he just buy from someone who was at the room?
The confidential informant stated he purchased directly from Mr. Johnson and that he was the only occupant in the room at the time.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to the second of the purchases by the confidential informant from Mr. Johnson. Where did that occur?
At a gas station in close proximity to the hotel.
Okay. And at that time, did the confidential informant purchase from Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Johnson was the only person inside the vehicle, yes.
Okay. After these two purchases by the confidential informant from Mr. Johnson, did you take any action as a part of this investigation?
I obtained an arrest warrant from Mr. Johnson for, I believe, possession of marijuana with intent and possession of cocaine.
Okay. And based on those arrest warrants, do you know if an agency executed those arrest warrants?
Yeah, the arrest warrant was turned over to Detective Denard, who's assigned to the U.S. Marshal Task Force, and they were responsible for apprehending Mr. Johnson.
Okay. After that, officer, did you have any further involvement in the case regarding Mr. Johnson?
No, on the date that he was apprehended, I believe I was on annual leave.
Okay. Thank you so much, officer. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Florio.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon. Wilkerson, what's your official title now, sir?
Corporal.
Okay. Good afternoon, Corporal Wilkerson.
How you doing?
All right, so let's go back. When did your investigation into Mr. Johnson begin?
Without me having my case file present, I wouldn't be able to give you a specific date, but it may have been early February or the end of January.
Okay. And what drew your attention to Mr. Johnson? How did you become familiar with him?
Information I received from a confidential informant.
Okay. And that information that you received from the confidential informant, was this information that was provided to you in writing? Was it just verbal information? How was this information relayed to you?
Verbal.
Okay. The confidential informant that you utilized, did they seem to have some sort of familiarity with Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. Were there certain things that you instructed the confidential informant to do at your request in order to further this investigation?
Yes.
Okay. Did you instruct the confidential informant to call Mr. Johnson?
During a controlled buy, yes.
Okay. How about communicate via text message with Mr. Johnson?
No, I think so. I mean, during the buys, he was contacted by phone, not by text.
Okay. And that communication, would that have occurred through your cell phone or through the CI's cell phone? Who was responsible for reaching out to Mr. Johnson?
It would have been through the CI's cell phone.
Okay. Did you maintain or did you try to obtain any sort of memorialization of this? Like, do you have phone records? Do you have text messages? Do you have anything of that nature?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you have the phone number at which the CI was making contact with Mr. Johnson?
It would be in the case file, yes.
Okay. All right. And so you testified to two separate buys. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And are there police reports or records for both of these controlled buys?
Yes, they both should be in the case file.
Okay. And did you swear warrants out for Mr. Johnson for both of these controlled buys?
No, only the controlled buy that occurred at the gas station where we were able to observe the CI make contact with Mr. Johnson.
Okay. So the first one that you identified, the one in the hotel room, you did not take warrants out for Mr. Johnson on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. The hotel room itself, was it in Mr. Johnson's name? Was it in someone else's name? Whose name was it in?
I believe it was in Mr. Johnson's name, but I wasn't there the day they executed the warrant. They would have obtained that information.
Okay. And so let's talk about the one where the CI went into the room. Was there any sort of marked money or county issued money that was used in that transaction?
It was county issued money, and the money should have been pre-recorded. It should be a photograph with the report.
Okay. And was that, or has that money ever been recovered from Mr. Johnson or from his room?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And so on that incident, what is the allegation? What do you allege that Mr. Johnson sold?
During that buy, I believe it was a small amount of cocaine and maybe marijuana during the first buy.
Okay. Do you know the weight?
I do not.
Okay. Is there some sort of memorialization of that in your case file?
What's that?
Is there some sort of memorialization of that in your case file?
I couldn't understand the question.
Is there a record of what you recovered in that first controlled buy in your case file?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Were those drugs sent to the GBI for testing?
The first buy, I don't believe so.
What did you do with the drugs?
Place them in evidence. The cocaine would have been field tested, but the marijuana would have not, and they were placed in evidence.
Okay, and you believe that they're both still in evidence with Clayton County Police Department?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the second, what date did that occur on, Detective Wilkerson, or Corporal Wilkerson?
I don't have my report now in front of me.
Okay. The second one that happened at the gas station, which gas station are you speaking of, sir?
It was a gas station in close proximity. I don't know the exact address. What I believe is, it was either a Sicko or Marathon.
Okay. Do you have video recording of this interaction?
No, we do not.
Do you have photograph recording of this interaction?
No, we do not.
Okay. Who was present for this interaction? Obviously the CI, and then who from law enforcement would have been there?
I was present as well as I believe Detective Silver John and Detective Caleb Isaac were right together.
I'm sorry, who? You, Sobajon, and who else?
Isaac and Ferguson.
What was that last name? I'm sorry.
Ferguson.
Okay. And all of y'all would have had eyes on this blue automobile that pulled up in the gas station parking lot?
Negative. Sober John and Isaac had eyes on the vehicle. I was across the street, and Detective Ferguson was at the hotel, and I observed him when he came back to the location.
Okay. So who actually saw this transaction occur? Sobajon and Isaac?
Correct.
Okay. Did you maintain a copy of the text messages or phone calls or anything like that between the CI and Mr. Johnson?
No.
Okay. And just to be clear, there's no videos or pictures or anything of this interaction?
No.
Why not?
If we photographed or took videos and pictures of the actual transaction, it will probably include the CI.
What about, do you have a picture of him in that car in that parking lot that day?
In that car? No, I don't.
Okay, do you have a picture of him at that parking lot at that gas station, period?
You said, do I have a picture of him, period? I don't believe so.
Okay. Did the CI refer to him as Daryl Johnson, or how did you become familiar with what his name was?
Oh, I ran the phone number provided through the Clear database, and also was able to obtain the tag number of the vehicle.
So the cell phone and the tag both were what gave you the name Daryl Johnson?
Correct, I believe so. And after obtaining his identity, was able to show a photograph to the CI, who positively identified him as the subject he was in contact with.
I'm sorry, say that again. I apologize. I couldn't understand you, Corporal.
After obtaining his identity, I was able to obtain a photograph to show to the CI. The CI was able to confirm Mr. Johnson as the individual he had been dealing with, and also detectives had seen Mr. Johnson come and go from that hotel room.
Okay. And you just referred to the CI as he. Was the CI a male, Corporal Wilkerson?
5445 on National Highway.
Yes.
5445 on National Highway.
Whose CI was this? Was this your CI? How were you familiar with the CI?
On National Highway.
Restate that question.
Yes, sir. How were you familiar with the CI, Corporal?
Oh, it was a CI that I have been working with for a couple of years.
Okay.
My kids probably will become a 29.
And when the CI set up this, Corporal, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. When the CI set up this buy from Mr. Johnson, Was it at your request? Was it something that the CI did on his own?
It was at my request.
Okay. And so did you instruct the CI to order a specific quantity of drugs?
Correct.
Okay. And did you instruct the CI what drugs to order?
Correct.
Okay. And do you recall how much, what type of drugs you instructed the CI to order?
I don't, no, I did not. I just know I gave him a monetary amount to order.
Okay. And how much was that monetary amount?
I believe, I know the second buy was $150. I don't, without having my report, I can't give you an exact number for the first buy.
Okay. And the $150, was that, again, was that in Mark County money?
Yes.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, was that money from the second buy, has that ever been recovered either on Mr. Johnson's person or in Mr. Johnson's hotel room or anything of that nature?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Now, would you, in setting up this buy, would you would have told the CI how much drugs to purchase? Is that correct?
What's that?
In setting up this controlled buy, you would have instructed the CI how much drugs to purchase. Is that correct?
I would give him an amount. Yeah.
Okay. And that's when you say amount, you mean a weight or a dollar amount?
Dollar amount.
Okay. All right. So to the best of your knowledge, there was never an order made for a specific weight of drugs just based off of a dollar amount.
Right.
Okay. How you've been involved in the narcotics industry or the narcotics area for what, 14 years now?
At least 12.
Okay. To the best, based upon your training and experience, how much would 5.3 grams of marijuana go for? What would be the price of 5.3 grams of marijuana?
It would vary greatly based off of the type of marijuana you were buying and the grade of marijuana.
Okay. Well, based off of what you believe that Mr. Johnson had, how much would 5.3 grams of marijuana go for?
He had multiple strands of marijuana, but I guess you could go anywhere from about $45 to maybe $80.
Okay. And then 0.56 grams of cocaine. How much would, what's the street value of 0.56 grams of cocaine? Half a gram.
Cocaine?
Yes, sir.
It's the same. It varies based off the quantity and who's selling it. You can get it from some people for maybe $40 and some people $80, $90.
Okay. Just 1 second, please, Your Honor. What type of vehicle do you recall Mr. Johnson being in?
At one point, he was a Kia, a blue Kia, and I don't recall the other.
All right, no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Any redirect, Attorney Watkins?
Just briefly, Corporal Wilkerson, I apologize for not addressing you appropriately earlier. When you when you met with the CI, who provided the name for the target of this investigation?
The CI never knew him by name. I don't recall exactly what the CI was calling or referring to him as, but that would be possibly could be in the case file. I do know that after my investigation, at some point, I was able to ID Mr. Johnson, and the CI was showing a picture which he positively identified him as Mr. Johnson.
And so am I understanding you to say that the CI gave you the information regarding the defendant first, even though he did not have a name, and you were able to subsequently identify a name?
Correct. The information given to me, provided by CI, correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recalls, Attorney Florio?
No, No, ma'am, Your Honor.
05350708.
Corporal was-
What's that?
I said you're excused.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Corporal.
Would you like for me to let in your next witness, Attorney Walker?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
So I let him in. I don't know if he's connecting to the audio or not, but he's here. You see where it says arresting officer?
Yes, Your Honor, I see it.
Okay.
Officer Sobajan, if you can you hear me? Your Honor, I'm going to call him on speaker to see if he can hear
Okay.
us.
Hello?
Hi, Sobajan.
Yes.
We see you listed as arresting officer. Do you have your audio set up for the
It
Zoom?
just says, the only thing it says is it's waiting for the host to let me in. It's just a black screen.
Do you check again? The judge just let you in?
Okay. Let me check. I gotta hang up with you though, or swap because it's a Zoom.
Oh, that's fine. But she's let you in, so you should be able to connect your audio now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hi, officer. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started with your testimony. If you would, are you in a space where you're able to, Your Honor, would you like for him to take his mask off?
Yes, please. Are you able?
I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Things issues have been discussed with some of the officers maintaining their mask on.
Officer, hold on one moment.
Okay.
Attorney Freeman, would you?
Yeah,
You're
I think,
breaking
Judge, I think that's something that has come up before with some of the officers in their capacities, keeping their mask on to prevent their identities from being on YouTube. It is my understanding that this was discussed with Chief Judge Hill, and that the officers should be allowed to keep their mask on.
Attorney Florio, you have a response?
Yes, Judge. I mean, I'm going to object. Like, we have a right to confrontation. And I understand that. I mean, I've not been a part of any of these discussions. I don't know if the defense bar has been a part of any of these discussions, which Ms. Freeman has evidenced between someone and Chief Judge Hill. But I absolutely have a right to confrontation and confront this gentleman. And wearing a mask, that doesn't, at this point, my client's constitutional rights now become violated because of it. Additionally, and the court's aware, having presided for years in this court, this detective, this is not his first time testifying. He has testified for years in the Magistrate Court of Clayton County without a mask. So the idea that no one knows who he is, what his name is, or what his face is a farce. We've just changed the policy, I guess, in the last week or two. And I don't know that a policy decision trumps my client's constitutional rights. And so I'd vehemently object to him continuing to testify with his face covered. And that would be my response, Your Honor.
Okay, so this is the first time that I have been aware about this being an issue. So just give me a few minutes, okay? I'll be right back.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Mr. Florio,
Yes, sir.
hey, this is Deputy Brown. Hey, your client would like to talk with you, sir.
I mean, I guess it's up to the judge. I mean, it would be her decision.
Okay, that's just the question he had, so.
Okay. Thank
All right.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Leon.
All right.
So is this particular officer, is he an undercover officer or is he a regular police officer?
I am undercover, Judge.
Okay. So we have two options. Because he's undercover, we would have to not stream on YouTube and we would just have to record it. But he would be allowed to keep his mask on if we're live on YouTube.
Judge, it's my, just for the court's knowledge, because I just had another lawyer text me, I don't believe this is streaming on YouTube.
It is. It says
well,
on YouTube.
Okay, I think I've had like 3 or 4 people text me this morning. I don't think anybody's able to see it, but to the extent that it is, I'm okay with it coming off YouTube. I would ask that it come off YouTube so that Detective Sobachan remove his mask.
And Judge, and just to make sure, if Detective, is that something that that you are okay with, that if we aren't streaming, to remove the mask, or you still want to keep the mask on?
This came from Chief Judge right here.
Yeah,
So
I don't think
if
he
he was
gets
an
the vote.
undercover officer, that he would be able to keep it on because we're streaming on Zoom. And she said that because the point is to protect the fact that he's an undercover officer.
That's great. I'm just trying to want to get clarification also, Judge, that if we do go off of YouTube, as Attorney Florio has indicated, does that make a difference with this officer? At that point, are you comfortable removing your mask, or you still need to keep your mask on?
I would rather keep my mask on for my identity and my family's sake.
Right, and see, that's what I thought. So, and I know this is, and I know Attorney Florio, you know, we've discussed this before, and I certainly understand his argument, but as representatives of the state, we certainly have to bear in mind the safety of our officers, and we have these officers who are working undercover in these capacities, and we are asking that even if we go off of YouTube, that he still be allowed to keep his mask on.
Okay, one moment.
Thank you, Judge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so I just received clarification because he is an undercover agent. He will be allowed to keep his mask on, and you can still confront the witness with his mask on.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Attorney Watkins, you can finish your question. Your questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, officer. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you? I'm great.
I'm well, thank you for asking. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
You can put your hand down. Please state and spell your true correct name for the record.
Detective Sabajian, Sobadjian.
And Detective, with whom are you currently employed?
The Clayton County Police Department.
And how long have you been so employed?
Coming on 8 years.
And prior to your time, what are your responsibilities, with the Clayton County Police Department?
I am in the narcotics division. I am a narcotics investigator or detective.
And how long have you been in the narcotics division?
As a detective, 1 year, just a little over a year.
And prior to that 1 year as a detective with narcotics, what did you do?
I was an officer in narcotics with an interdiction and crime suppression unit, the Tiger unit.
Okay. And how long were you with that unit?
For about 2 years, give or take.
And you referred to it as the Tiger unit?
That's correct.
Can you explain to me the inner work or the responsibilities of the Tiger unit?
It's a crime suppression unit and a drug interdiction unit. And we also assisted narcotics detectives with anything they needed.
Okay. So it sounds like at least the last 3 years have been focused around narcotics.
Correct.
Prior to your time with the Clayton County Police Department in narcotics, it seems that there are about 5 years remaining with your time with CCPD. What were you doing?
I was on the road as a patrol officer.
Okay. And do you have any law enforcement experience prior to CCPD or the Clayton County Police Department?
No.
All right. Detective, I want to ask you, are you post-certified?
I am.
And have you maintained your post-certification throughout your employment with the Clayton County Police Department?
I have.
I want to direct your attention to a couple of dates regarding a particular individual. Are you familiar with the defendant in this case, Mr. Johnson, Daryl Johnson?
I am.
And how are you familiar with him?
A search warrant was executed at 4552 Old Dixie Highway, room 105 in Forest Park, Georgia, 30297, Clayton County, Georgia, on 2/19 of this year.
And prior to the execution of that search warrant, had you had any interaction with the defendant, Mr. Johnson?
I did not know. Me personally, no.
Okay. Have you had a chance to write a report regarding your interactions with Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention. You said a search warrant was executed on February 19th of 2021. Were there any other interactions that led up to that search warrant that you're aware of?
I don't know. That would be something that Detective Wilkerson would have to answer.
The February 19th search warrant, how do you know how it came to be? How law enforcement came to obtain a search warrant for that location?
Objection, Judge. This has been asked and answered twice now. Twice she's asked him about prior interactions, and twice he's told her, I don't know anything else. You'd have to ask another detective. We understand what's going on here based off of what Wilkerson just testified to, but this is, at this point, it's asked and answered. He said twice he doesn't know.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. The question at this point is, does he know how the search warrant came to be obtained, not regarding any other interactions that he personally has had with Mr. Johnson? the detective is testifying to his involvement regarding a search warrant on February 19th, and I'm asking him, does he know how we got to the search warrant?
Okay, overruled.
Detective, I want to ask it very clearly. Do you know how we got to the search warrant on February 19th?
Yes, U.S. Marshals were executing arrest warrants that were taken out for Mr. Johnson, and that's how I was able to make contact with Mr. Johnson that day.
Okay, and after contact was made by the U.S. Marshals regarding an arrest warrant, were you the detective who took out the search warrant?
I was not. Another detective actually took out the search warrant, but I was on scene. That's why I didn't do it. And that's why he did it.
Okay. When you were on scene, what observations, if any, did you make?
As far as what?
Leading up to the search warrant.
Oh, so I was called by one of the U.S. Marshals to confirm Daryl Johnson's, I guess, location. So when I pulled up to the hotel, I observed a blue 2018 Kia Forte parked in front of room 105. And I observed Mr. Johnson come out of room 105 as well.
Okay. And was that the Daryl Johnson that you were there looking for?
That is correct. That is the Daryl Johnson that the U.S. Marshals were looking for.
Okay. And do you see that individual in court today?
I guess I have to scroll through. Yes, I do. He's wearing an orange jumpsuit and a white face mask.
Your Honor, the state would request the in-court identification of the defendant as Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so identified.
Detective, after you observed the defendant exit room 105 and enter the blue Kia, what, if anything, did you do?
I just sat in my vehicle.
Okay. And were you waiting on something in particular to happen?
That's when as I observed Mr. Johnson walk out of room 105, I observed the U.S. Marshals pull up to the location.
Okay. And what did the U.S. Marshals do?
They took Mr. Johnson into custody.
And subsequent to him going into custody, was a search warrant obtained?
Yes, for his hotel room and for the vehicle.
And were you present for the execution of that search warrant of the hotel room?
I was.
Okay. And when the hotel room was searched, were there any other occupants in the hotel room?
Not that I was aware of, no, ma'am.
Okay. And were any items identified or collected from the hotel room?
Yes, there were plenty of items collected from the hotel room.
Okay. Can you walk me through what was collected?
Absolutely. So from the hotel room, do you want me to go line by line from my report as to what was located in the room?
Before you do, Attorney Florio, do you have the police report?
And Judge, again, I would raise this objection. I know he continues to look down. I know he's refreshing his recollection with something. And I know
I know what you're going to say.
I don't. Yes, ma'am. I don't.
Police report, Attorney Florio.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have it. That's not something that the police department will provide to us.
Attorney Watkins, would you email that to him, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I apologize. I didn't use our time more efficiently earlier. I'll send it right now.
Okay. All right. No problem. Well, I'll be signing orders while you guys get that done.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Attorney Florio, I sent the email.
I just signed the waivers and consent bonds and Brooks, Bates, Adams, and Dallas. And then the ones that came earlier, I forgot to let you guys know that. So those have all been signed.
Judge, does that mean we may be excused? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. All right, Mr. Florio, are you still reviewing it?
No, ma'am, Your Honor, I'm good.
You're
Thank
ready?
you very much. Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Watkins.
You're welcome, Attorney Florio. Detective.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to pick up where we left off. Were any items obtained during the search warrant of the hotel room?
Yes. Would you like me to name them line by line as displayed in my report?
To be just a little bit more appropriate, do you know them off the top of your head?
I do not. I would have to refer back. It was a lot of stuff.
Okay. And so, Your Honor, the state would like to allow the officer to refresh his recollection from his report.
Okay.
Yes, Detective.
Okay. In the room 105, detectives located 2 jars filled with marijuana, approximately 1.1 grams and approximately 1.2 grams, approximately 11 bags filled with marijuana, total of approximately 19 grams of marijuana, 1 digital scale with marijuana residue on it, approximately half a gram of cocaine, ledgers, and a cup filled with cash, all located on the table next to the nightstand. We also located 5 bags of marijuana in a jar, approximately 9 grams of that, 5 cups filled with cash, a cinnamon toast crunch THC edible, and that was all located in the cabinet above the microwave. We located approximately 22 grams of marijuana in a plastic bag, approximately 24 grams of marijuana, approximately 109 grams of marijuana, approximately 7 grams of marijuana, approximately 36 grams of marijuana, approximately 7 grams of marijuana, approximately 7 more grams of marijuana, approximately 24 more grams of marijuana, approximately 5 more grams of marijuana, approximately 4 grams of suspected mushrooms in 3 bags. That was approximately 7 grams. We located methamphetamine. That was approximately 7 grams. We located approximately 2 grams of a blue powder that was suspected MDMA. We located 4 bags, approximately 124 grams of MDMA pills. We located 4 bags, which was approximately 126 grams of suspected THC gummies, edibles. We located approximately 12 grams of suspected moon rocks, which is a type of THC-derived marijuana. We located approximately 27 grams of suspected crack cocaine, approximately 10 more grams of suspected crack cocaine, and approximately another gram of suspected crack cocaine. We located another gram of suspected crack cocaine and an unknown amount of U.S. currency that was all located in a Red Hawks backpack that was next to the table in the room. We then located approximately 6 Xanax pills, which would weigh about 2 grams. We located a half of an unknown white pill that we were unable to identify at the time. We located 2 grams of MDMA, and that was all located in the cabinet above the microwave. And we also located another undisclosed amount of U.S. currency and 2 phones on Mr. Johnson's person. That wasn't all in the room. I can also tell you what was located in the vehicle if you want me to.
Before we get to what was located,
I'm sorry, Attorney Watkins. Who all was in the room when he was arrested?
As far as law enforcement or as far as other people that were taken into custody?
Other non-law enforcement people.
None that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Like I said, I wasn't there when he was taken into custody. I was in my vehicle.
Okay.
may I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Detective, doing some very quick math, it seems that there's at least over 1 ounce of marijuana in total.
That's correct.
And over about or more 124 grams of MDMA.
That's about correct.
And 126 grams of THC.
That's about correct, give or take. I would have to sit down and do the math to get it all correct. But that's about.
And then about, just quick mental math, about another just under 40 grams or so of suspected crack cocaine based on the numbers that you provided.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And those were all found in the hotel room?
Yes, ma'am.
Was another search warrant obtained with respect to Mr. Johnson?
Yes, for the vehicle, the 2018, I believe it was, Kia.
Okay. And what, if anything, did that search warrant reveal or yield?
Okay. It yielded 22 bags of marijuana, which weighed approximately 26 grams, approximately 7 grams of marijuana, 8 grams of marijuana, 7 grams of marijuana, 8 grams of marijuana, 7 grams of marijuana, 8 grams of marijuana, 7 grams of marijuana, 7 more grams of marijuana, 7 more grams of marijuana, and another 7 grams of marijuana, approximately 15 grams of MDMA, approximately 2 grams of suspected crack cocaine, approximately 4 more grams of suspected crack cocaine, and approximately 3 grams of suspected methamphetamine, approximately 99 oxycodone pills in a bottle, and 1 Taurus PT-140 G2 handgun with magazine and 7 bullets, and also another unknown amount of U.S. currency.
Detective, just with respect to the quantities of marijuana you listed, when you mentioned 22 bags of marijuana at approximately 26 grams, you subsequently listed other individual gram amounts of marijuana. Are those in addition to or included in the 22 bags of marijuana?
That's in addition to.
Okay. Based on your experience in narcotics, what, if any, opinions did you form?
That would lead me to believe that there was some form of distribution going on or some form of sale going on, just as everything was individually and separately packaged as it was ready for sale. And also, in my knowledge and experience, that's way more than one would carry for personal use.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Attorney Florio.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
All right. So I understood you to say this was your first encounter with Daryl Johnson. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You've not been part of any prior investigations or any prior work or anything of that nature. Is that correct?
I don't remember if I was part of a buy that was conducted. I can't remember 100% if I assisted with that, but as far as I know, yes, this would be my first actual interaction with Mr. Johnson.
Okay. You're familiar with the practices and procedures of the Clayton County Police Department, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And typically, if there's a buy conducted, is it standard operating procedure that there be some sort of video recordation or picture recordation, something of that nature related to that?
As far as, I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
Right. If y'all were going to be involved in some sort of a controlled buy, or if you were to be involved in some sort of a controlled buy, excuse me, would you expect to have some sort of photographic evidence of it, video proof, something of that nature?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
Because if a confidential informant is involved, we wouldn't want to give away their identity as well as ours.
Okay. But to the best of your knowledge, you had not been involved in any such activity with Mr. Johnson previously. Is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, I have not, but like I said, I am not 100% sure if I was involved in a buy. I can't remember off the top of my head, but physical interaction, this is my first one. Yes.
Okay. Now, I've had an opportunity to review your investigative summary. Have you?
I did. I wrote it.
Okay. Is there anything about your investigative summary that you found to be inaccurate, correct, anything that you would want to change?
Nope.
Okay. All right. And so I understand from having read it, it seems to indicate that U.S. Marshals executed an arrest warrant for Mr. Johnson. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And your report seems to indicate that that arrest warrant was conducted inside of the hotel room. Is that correct?
No, he came outside, like I stated earlier. While I was there, he came outside and he actually got in his car.
Okay. And so I understand your police report or your report to reflect that law enforcement observed certain items in plain view in his hotel room. Is that correct?
That is correct. The U.S. Marshals did.
Okay. Have you communicated or discussed with U.S. Marshals about this, about that discovery?
I don't understand your question.
Have you talked to the U.S. Marshals about the dope they found in the room?
Oh yeah, that's why the search warrant was taken out, because of what they saw in plain view.
Okay. Did the U.S. Marshals tell you why they went in? So I understood you to say that Mr. Johnson was arrested in his automobile. Is that correct?
Yes, he was taken into custody in his automobile.
Okay. And where was his automobile located?
It was parked in front of room 105.
Okay. And I understood you to say that they then, after arresting Mr. Johnson, they then went into his hotel room. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. They told you why they went into his hotel room?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with me that when they went into his hotel room, that search warrant had not yet been issued?
Which search warrant? The one that was taken out by the police department?
Yes, sir.
No, the search warrant that was taken out by the police department was after everything, after he was taken into custody and everything happened.
How many search warrants are there, Detective?
2. There's a search warrant for the room and there's a search warrant for the vehicle.
Okay. And it's your understanding that both search warrants were obtained after the entry into the hotel room had been made?
Yes, after U.S. Marshals took Mr. Johnson into custody, both of those other search warrants were taken out.
Okay. Had you conducted prior surveillance on this hotel room?
I don't recall. I don't think I have. Like I said, this was my first actual interaction with Mr. Johnson to my recollection.
Okay. If you had conducted prior surveillance on this hotel room, would there be reports reflecting that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Did you do any investigation into whose name this room was in?
I did not.
Okay. Are you prepared to testify are you aware as to whether or not other people had access to this hotel room?
I have no idea, sir.
Okay. When this arrest was made, I understood you to say that Mr. Johnson was the only person that was located in the hotel room. Was that correct?
Mr. Johnson was the only person that came out of the room, yes.
Okay. Was there any reason to believe that anyone else was located in this room?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any idea as to when the narcotics were placed in that hotel room?
I have no idea.
Okay. And do you have any evidence or proof as to who placed the narcotics in the hotel room?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Johnson was arrested, he was actually seated in his automobile. Is that correct?
Yes, he was in his vehicle and I was in my undercover vehicle, and as he was taken into custody, that's when I stepped out of my vehicle.
Okay. And what was the purpose of you being there? Why were you there?
For surveillance, as far as making sure that he was at the hotel room so that the U.S. Marshals could conduct their arrest warrant and execute it.
Okay. And as part of your surveillance, you saw...
I'm sorry, Attorney Florio. So were you there before the marshals arrived, or you got there afterwards?
I was there before the marshals arrived. I was there doing surveillance.
Okay, all right. That was my only question at this time.
Okay. And the surveillance that you conducted, were you in contact with the U.S. Marshals?
I was.
Okay. Who from the U.S. Marshals were you speaking with? Do you recall?
I was speaking to Detective Denard.
Okay. And you were communicating to Denard everything that you were seeing as it was happening in real time. Is that correct?
I wasn't on the phone with him the whole time. I spoke to him before I got there, and I spoke to him, I think, once everything was done. But I did speak to him before.
Okay. And at no time did you make U.S. Marshals aware that you believe that there was anyone else inside that room. Is that correct?
Can you say that again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I apologize. At any time, did you make the U.S. Marshals aware that anyone was located in that room, aside from Mr. Johnson?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. And had anyone told the U.S. Marshals that there was someone else located in that room, to the best of your knowledge?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Any reason to believe anyone else was located in that room, to the best of your knowledge?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. And so Mr. Johnson was arrested in his automobile, and was there a search of his automobile conducted, or did law enforcement wait for the search warrant to be issued?
The search warrant was issued, and that's when we found everything in the vehicle.
Okay, so y'all did not search the automobile until after the search warrant for the automobile was granted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Are you aware as to whether or not there were any narcotics or anything of that nature actually located on Mr. Johnson's person?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I think he just had phones and cash on his person, I believe.
Do you remember how much cash he had on him?
I don't.
Okay. And once he was arrested, he was placed into custody. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then what did you do once he was arrested?
Once he was arrested, I contacted Detective Caleb, and I advised him on what was going on, and he got the search warrant for the room, and we executed the search warrant to the room, and then he got the search warrant for the vehicle, and we executed the search warrant for the vehicle. Okay.
So you were responsible to relaying to Detective Caleb what needed to be put in the search warrant in order to have the search warrant issued. Is that correct?
Yes, I was in contact with Detective Caleb, advising him what was going on in real time.
Okay. And what did you tell Detective Caleb?
Exactly what's in my report.
Okay. And so you told Detective Caleb that a search had been conducted of the hotel room and that he needed to get a search warrant for that hotel room and for the car, correct?
I told him that a protective sweep was conducted of the room, and drugs were seen in plain view as marshals were there to execute the arrest warrant on Mr. Johnson.
Who conducted that protective sweep?
The U.S. Marshals.
Okay. And you had been in contact with the U.S. Marshals, correct?
I was contacted by the U.S. Marshals prior to them arriving, yes.
Okay. And were you in contact with Detective Denard, do you recall?
That's who I spoke to.
Okay. And at no point did you tell Detective Denard that you believed that there was anyone located in that hotel room. Is that correct?
I don't understand your question.
Did you tell Denard that you thought that there was someone inside that hotel room?
I told him what I observed, that I observed the vehicle there. And as he was coming out of the hotel room, I attempted to call him, but I guess they were all en route at that point, so I couldn't make contact with him on the phone.
You attempted to call Detective Denard?
I did.
Okay. And was that from your personal cell phone or a county-issued cell phone?
I don't recall.
Do you use your personal cell phone or your county-issued cell phone?
I use both.
Okay. Did you attempt to call Detective Denard on a county-issued cell phone or his personal cell phone?
I don't know. That would be something he would have to answer.
Well, no. I mean, you made the phone call. What number did you call him at?
I don't know off the top of my head which one's his personal and which one's his county, so I couldn't tell you.
The narcotics that were located inside of the car, where did you locate them in the car?
I didn't locate them. Officer Laxon located them.
Okay. Is Laxon the one who executed the search warrant of the automobile?
He was the one that located everything in the automobile. That is correct.
Okay. Have you spoken with Laxon about his execution of that search warrant?
As far as what?
Have you asked Laxon, where did you find the drugs?
No.
Okay. Did Laxon tell you where he found the drugs?
He told me he found them in the vehicle.
Okay. Were they located in a bag or was it just spread out across the vehicle?
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. Who was responsible for executing the search warrant of the hotel room?
Myself, Officer Laxon, and yes, myself and Officer Laxon.
Okay. So no one else aside from y'all two
that were in charge of locating things.
Mm-hmm.
It was myself, Officer Laxon. Honestly, I can't remember who else was there. I think Detective Denard was there briefly, and I think Detective Rowe was there as well. But as far as finding things, it was myself and Officer Laxon.
Okay. Did the hotel room have one bed or two beds in it?
One, I believe.
Okay. Was there? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just making sure that you heard. I said I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. Yes, just one bed.
Was there any sort of video recording made of the search of the hotel room?
I don't believe so.
Anybody from law enforcement there with body cam?
I believe Officer Laxon had his, but I'm not 100% sure if it was on or not.
Okay. And is there any video recordation of the search of the automobile?
Like I said, Officer Laxon was the one with the camera. I would not be able to tell you whether he recorded or not. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Did anybody take still pictures? Any sort of still pictures made of the inside of the hotel room?
Not to my knowledge, no. I believe pictures were taken of the actual items that were located, not the actual room, no.
Okay. What about pictures of the automobile?
I don't recall any pictures of the automobile being taken of the inside or anything.
Okay. Do you know whose name room 105 is in?
I don't.
Just 1 second, please, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect Attorney Watkins?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you can be excused.
Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
All right, argument?
The state will reserve and respond.
All right, Attorney Florio?
Yes, ma'am. Judge, there are several aspects of this case that I think are extremely troubling. The first is this allegation by Denard. I'll look at the first set of warrants. There's testimony by Denard that there was a hand-to-hand sale, some sort of drug transaction that occurred at a gas station a couple days before, okay? And Wilkerson testifies that the person that saw this, that one of the two people that were in the gas station parking lot and witnessed this was Sobajon. Now, Wilkerson testifies that I have no video recording of it. I have no pictures of it. I don't have any of that proof, but I've got Sobajon, and let me double check. I don't want to get the detective wrong. It was Sobajon and Isaac were in the parking lot, in the gas station parking lot, and they saw it happen. Because you'll remember, he said that Ferguson was at the hotel, and you'll remember Wilkerson said he was across the street. But he testified that Sobajon was in the parking lot only a couple days before, and he saw it. And then we fast forward a couple days, and Sobajan's now at that search, and we cross-examined Sobajan, and Sobajan says, no, man, I don't, but on direct, Ms. Watkins asked Sobajan about prior incidences with Mr. Johnson. He doesn't remember Johnson. I've never seen him in person. I've never had these prior instances. I don't know. And I think there were 2 or 3 attempts by the state to try to draw Sobajan in, and Sobajan was honest. I don't remember. And then I asked him, and he testifies to the same thing. I don't remember, okay? And so we've got Wilkerson making this allegation against Mr. Johnson of a hand-to-hand sale, an allegation that's largely uncorroborated aside from Wilkerson saying it, and Sobajan saying, no, I don't remember. That's the idea that Sobajan was in the gas station parking lot a couple days before this and doesn't remember it. It's not that he doesn't remember it, it's that it never happened, okay? We then fast forward and we look at this search. And so we've got Sobajan now in contact with the U.S. Marshal Service. He's in contact with Denard. We all know Detective Denard is on loan to the U.S. Marshal Service from where? Clayton County Police Department, Narcotics Unit. So we've got Denard and we've got Sobajan talking with each other, communicating with each other. We've got Mr. Johnson arrested, okay? And then all of a sudden this leads to, well, we're going to run up into the hotel room and conduct a protective sweep of the hotel room. And you've heard through multiple questions today, you've got Sobajan identifying multiple times, I didn't see anybody else in the room. I didn't know, no one else was in the room, no one coming, no one going. So protective sweep of what? What's the basis of this protective sweep? Yet law enforcement runs up there, conducts a protective sweep, and now all of a sudden runs out and gets search warrants. It's clear that the search warrants were issued off of nothing more than the protective sweep, nothing about what was located in the automobile when Mr. Johnson was arrested, because Sobajan admitted that we didn't search the automobile. And I believe them. I don't think they searched the automobile. I believe that they waited. So I think when you look at this case, Your Honor, all of it appears to be tainted by police work that wasn't conducted in the proper way that it should have been conducted, excuse me. And I know a lot of these issues, Your Honor, are motions to suppress type issues, but I think it's important to acknowledge it at this point, especially when we're talking about, you know, a probable cause today, and especially when this gentleman is located on a Friday morning bond calendar. And so I think it's important to identify that there are significant issues with what law enforcement did in this, whether it's one officer contradicting another officer, or whether it's one officer testifying as to a protective sweep for a room that he was sitting there staring at and knew no one else was in. And so, Judge, I understand, again, I get motions to suppress versus preliminary hearing, and I understand burdens, but, you know, for me representing this gentleman today, and for me representing this gentleman Friday morning, and for me trying to resolve this case and move it forward and addressing issues of bond, I think that these are important things that we continue to remember and we continue to acknowledge. And so having said that, Your Honor, I'll rest on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Your Honor, this testimony today was presented by the state's witnesses, Corporal Wilkerson and Detective Sobajan, and contrary to Attorney Florio's assertion, their testimony wasn't contradictory. Detective, now Corporal Wilkerson, testified that he had a confidential informant who conducted several, not one, but several controlled buys, that the confidential informant did not provide him Mr. Johnson's name. In fact, he provided him some other information that the detective had to work to corroborate and provide an identification that connected to Mr. Johnson. And those two controlled buys by the confidential informant were conducted at two specific locations. And those are the only two locations that are relevant, because they're the only two locations that still pertain to the mass amount of drugs and the one firearm that is at issue in the bulk of this case, that being the hotel room located, room 105, located at the hotel at 4552 Old Dixie Highway in Forest Park in Clayton County, and being the blue Kia. The first encounter with Mr. Johnson was the undercover, or the controlled purchase by the confidential informant from the hotel room, specifically hotel room 105. Okay, a couple days later, there's another controlled buy near that same hotel room of the defendant in his vehicle, the blue Kia. Again, another controlled buy from this same defendant in the same vehicle. That information that Detective Wilkerson provided, or Corporal Wilkerson provided, in reference to how they even came to be with Mr. Johnson on their radar. And based on that information, arrest warrants were executed for Mr. Johnson for the latter of the two controlled buys. The officers responded to the room where they knew Mr. Johnson to be, the room that he sold drugs out of to the confidential informant. And upon that arrest warrant being executed, the state's not, it's not lost on the state that the most preferable thing, especially as Attorney Florio puts it, would have been that there should have been photos and video and all these other things. I like those things too. But unfortunately, that's not what we have here. What we have is Detective Sobajan saying, hey, I was undercover. I was told to go to the place where we thought the defendant was going to be to see if he was there so that the U.S. Marshals could come to that specific place and arrest him. I sat in my car and I told them that, yeah, he appears to be here. His car is here in front of the room that we know to be his room. And that was his sole involvement prior to the U.S. Marshals arriving on scene. The U.S. Marshals arrived on scene. Yes, the defendant Mr. Johnson was in his automobile. He was detained, and short of them being present, I can't tell you their rationale for why they did a protective sweep, but they did. And based on what they observed, they did go get a search warrant. And it's the search warrant that locates the items that are in cupboards and cabinets in the kitchen. It's not just the things that they saw in plain view. If they would have seen the other things, I mean, you know, I'm sure they would have put that in the search warrant as well. But what they put in the search warrant was what they saw in plain view. The same stuff that supports their two prior interactions with Mr. Johnson, the two sales to the confidential informant. But moving along, Your Honor, the search warrant of the room is conducted. A mass amount of cocaine, MDMA, some oxycodone pills, and lots of marijuana was found inside the room, along with different quantities of U.S. currency and scales and plastic baggies, everything that suggests to the court, to Attorney Florio, to myself, and based on Detective Sobajan's testimony, that this was a distribution type of scenario, that this was not, oh, I have a couple of little hits of cocaine or a little bit of marijuana, that the quantities far exceeded what he and his experience has seen as a personal use amount. And so they do the next great thing in their investigations. They get a search warrant for the automobile. And again, in the automobile, they find more marijuana, MDMA, oxycodone, and a handgun. Your Honor, the amounts that were found all support the separate warrants in this case based on the controlled buy and based on the search warrants that were executed on the vehicle and on Mr. Johnson's hotel room. And while defense, you know, it candidly puts forward that there are some things that we wish would have been different and we wish we had more evidence at this stage, we are at a preliminary hearing where the burden is just, was there probable cause? And there was, and even Attorney Florio acknowledges that a lot of the arguments would be toward motions to suppress that the state will gladly consider at the appropriate time. But at this point, the thing that is most important is that there has been a basis of probable cause established for all of the warrants as it relates to Mr. Johnson, both from the controlled by the undercover or the confidential informant and based on the search of his hotel room and of his vehicle. And with that in mind, Your Honor, the state would ask that you make a determination that there is probable cause and that you would bind over all charges to Superior Court.
Based on the evidence and testimony presented today, I do find sufficient probable cause to bind the case over to Superior Court, and I'll sign all the documents accordingly. With that being said, I'm gonna, whatever is left, they've emailed since we started this hearing, I'm gonna sign those orders, and we're gonna be in recess what time is it? 1:21 to 1:45. And then I think the next hearing I have will be,
Should be like it, Your Honor. The officer should have logged on, maybe in the waiting
yeah,
room.
somebody named, is it Officer Gerald?
Yes.
Okay, could you have Officer Gerald just let him know to log back in at 1:45 so I can sign the orders and then,
Okay.
and then we'll be ready for your hearing.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Okay, all right, so we'll be in recess to 1:45.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Your Honor, if you can hear us, are you able to let Ms. Catrice Helen back in? I understand we're on break, but she's trying to get back in. She got knocked off when I called her to ask her a question.